Hi, all of you guys who like to play Shapes.io. I just wanted to let you know that I made some improvements on the factories that I've been designing for the free play mode. In the past, I've been having to design one of 5 different factories, plus a series of rotators on this one, and this return line. And in the past, I had to select one of these according to whether the free play included that opposite corners were the same, or if the left side were the same and the right side were the same, and with rotators it becomes the top and the bottom, or whether one set of opposite corners are the same and the other two are completely different, whether these two are the same or these two are the same. This required a totally different set of machines, and I kept having to erase and then install some new machines. Meanwhile, there were times when I had to move painters aside, like so, and then draw some conveyor belts so that in case it asked for a gray corner, that I wouldn't end up simply clogging up this whole system starting from here all the way back up and causing the whole thing to grind to a halt simply because I didn't add paint to this. But then I got this idea. Why not build a factory in which I can include a switchboard in order to be able to control what it is that I'm trying to build. Welcome to my new factory, and here I have a switchboard in which I can choose what color each corner is, in which gray or empty I select none of them, but otherwise I select one of these colors, and here I select one of these shapes. So how do I know which corner that I'm going to be using each color and shape on? Well, I created some indicators which actually point in the direction of the exact corner that these are going to be used for. And I used the star feature on a constant signal generator in order to create those pointers. And you can see that each pointer looks like the corner of a star. Now, if it calls for an empty space, I don't choose any of these shapes. But if it calls for one of these corners, then I click on that shape. So, how do I control which corner of which shape with which color? Well, I have a sample right here. Now here, I have this switch which controls one of these filters which I use for a gate which controls which one of these corners is going to be flowing through into the factory itself. And you'll notice that I put a second set of gates for bypass, and they're connected to the opposite wiring each. And then I connected these switches to a couple of OR gates so that if either of these are on, then these bypass gates will be able to allow flow into one of these devices here. Whereas if neither of them are on, then it'll allow a bypass. Here's the reason why. If any of these corners is left empty and you don't turn the switch on, then under normal circumstances, it'll just get caught behind this recombiner and it'll just clog all the way up to here and cause this whole production from here on down to grind to a halt. Same with this one, same with this one. But with the bypass filters, you're able to allow the corners to just choose a shortcut and find their way down anyway. As you can see. Same with this one. This one. And this one. Now, what if you need to make only the top half? Then you just go like this. Now wait for it. There. And you can see how the bypass engaged when I turn them back off. Now, what if you wanted to make only the left half? You turn these on. Look at that. Now, what if you need to make the upper right and lower left? But now, what if you needed for this one to be left empty? Look, it's left empty. But what if you need all four of them? Wait a sec. and you have a complete circle. Eventually, it'll form a complete circle all the time. There we go. Now sometimes it'll call for a gray corner. And here is where the painter bypass comes in. Because normally, if you don't choose a color, once again it's going to back up all the way to here, and from here on out, all production grinds to a halt. And here's how I designed that in my factory. Each button controls one of these bypass filter gates, and then they also connect to an OR gate, in which I made a series of OR gates in the factory itself. And if the OR gate picks up any of these two signals, it'll turn this filter on, and so all the shapes will go into the painter instead of going around it. But if none of these buttons are on, then it'll just bypass. Now I'm going to turn this one on, and you can see it's bypassing right now. Now let's give it some blue paint. Look! Now of course in my factory I use 8 of them in order to speed up the process. Now I'm going to give it some red paint. Here we go. Red paint. And again, it's letting the circles go through here. But now it's back to allowing the circles to bypass and remain gray. Have you ever made a flashing light in this game? How is that possible? Well, there's a simple solution to that. Make a series of inverters, and you'll always want to use an odd number of inverters. And as you can see, it takes time for the signals to travel through all of the inverters before reaching the AND gate, in which the switch controls the other input of the AND gate. And that's what causes the light to flash on and off. Now, of course, the fewer the inverters, the higher the frequency. Now, this is the typical frequency of a traffic signal beacon flashing red or amber. And this is the typical frequency of your car's turn indicator. Now, if you have an epileptic seizure that is triggered by the rapid flashing of a red light, you're going to want to cover your eyes right now, because this is getting on the verge of being that irritating flash which can trigger seizures, nausea, headaches, dizziness, or in some cases, it makes people very, very irritated and uneasy, especially if they are hypersensitive to stimuli, as I know that there are people with brain injuries or brain diseases or autism that tend to be very, very hypersensitive. So you want to watch how rapidly your lights flash. Which brings up a point. Again, if you have epilepsy and you get seizures triggered by the rapid flashing of a red light, you're going to want to cover your eyes right now. This is how they design flashing lights for mail trucks, garbage trucks, utility vehicles, first response vehicles, and other such vehicles. And anymore, I've seen those on red or amber flashing beacons on the corner of the street too. Now, I think that that is a bad idea to make lights flash like that, because, again, it could cause seizures, or it could cause headaches, nausea, dizziness, or other such illnesses because of the rapid flashing. Now, I designed it with two different oscillators, one to turn it on and off, and the other one with only one inverter to cause it to blink so rapidly. But it's just to show how annoying and how irritating and how sickening to some people it is to have to be bothered by such rapidly flashing lights. Now, what I'm about to do is I'm about to show you how exactly this factory works. And here I have my traffic light, which is connected to those three sensors to let me know when the shapes get closer and closer to the hub. And here I have a flashing red light, which is connected to this sensor, because it is very easy to turn this off while shapes are still trying to pour through. And so I install this flashing red light in order to make sure that I know not to turn this thing off until the light stops flashing. And here I put 21 of these inverters in the feedback loop of the AND gate. In order for this light to flash only as rapidly as a red traffic light beacon. Now here I have my 7 colors and my 4 shapes. And here, the top layer calls for cyan, 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 cyan. So I choose cyan, 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 cyan. And here it calls for square, star, star, square. So I go square, star, star, square. This next one calls for gray, empty, gray, gray. So in all 4 cases, I don't choose any color. That way, the shapes will bypass those painters. Pinwheel, empty, star, pinwheel. So I click pinwheel, I click nothing, I click star, and then I click pinwheel. Here it calls for cyan, gray, gray, cyan. So I click on cyan, don't click on anything, don't click on anything, click on cyan. And then here it's star, square, square, star. So I click on star, square, square, star. And then the final layer calls for gray, yellow, yellow, gray. So I leave this alone, click on yellow, and I leave this alone. And then I click on circle, square, square, circle. Circle, square, square, circle. Right now, it's flushing out all the junk. But when I turn on the master switch, all the selected shapes and colors are going to pour right in, and for the moment, it's still going to flush out all this excess junk. But eventually, it'll be able to get it right. Now, in some areas, I put these bypass gates with trash receptacles so that it won't have to flush out so much junk that goes all the way back up to there once it's finished. This is what the sensor's picking up. This is what the sensor should be picking up. This shows that the two match, and this shows that the sensor's picking something up. And only when the sensor's picking anything up does this show, thanks to a transistor which is connected to the on-off sensor portion of it. Now that we have something flowing, we look here and check to see that that's right. And when you see the green light, it means it is. So now we go to here, and that green light's starting to come on. And as it flushes all the junk out, eventually the green light will be glowing steadily. And then finally we come to here. And this green light is starting to go. And these containers are starting to fill. Now this signal shows red when either this receptacle is empty or these two shapes, these two overall shapes, do not match. It shows green when they do match. And again, using a series of XOR gates, I can control the same input with this switch or the one that I turn on the other end, or others which are way up above. Now to get a closer look at this, I steadily watch these numbers climb up. Now as soon as both receptacles reach 1K, I'm going to let her rip. And here we go. And there goes that flashing red light that I was talking about before. It's letting me know that there are a lot of shapes that still have to empty out before I shut this button off. I can now shut the first circuit off so as to help let these factory machines flush their way out. And now all three of the traffic lights are shining to let me know that they've just reached the hub. Ah, the gold changed. See that? But I still have to wait until the flashing red light no longer flashes. And then I can do the next part. Now, one thing that came to my mind was to have it fully automatic, automated, where the whole system is controlled by the signal from the hub. But then it wouldn't be a game anymore. I would have no reason to think about how I'm going to set up the factory next time. It would be like on Wheel of Fortune if Vanna White had nothing to do because the letters automatically came up instead of her having to touch the edges of the screens in order for the letters to come up. I'd rather be able to control it manually so that it would be a more challenging game rather than just sitting there doing nothing. So I'm not going to hook it up to the hub completely and let it take care of itself. I'm just going to keep it like this. So that's all for now.